Yomar Tov, y'all. Right? Boker Tov. Good morning. Our services are continuing as the whole day of Yom Kippur is moving one to the next. A good moment to remind all of us that we might want to put our phones on silent airplane mode. If you don't know how to do that, ask a millennial or child next to you. They'll be able to help you with that one. But we begin together as one community with the words of no words, of a nigun, just yai lai lai, with the melody that will be led by Taran and our wonderful musicians.
Boker Tov, good morning. Chag Sameach, Gemar Chatima Tova. May we each be sealed for good in this new year. Welcome to Temple Beth Am as we continue this sacred day of reflection and communal connection and growth. I'm Rabbi Jason Levine, and I'm honored to be joined by my clergy colleagues, Rabbi Ruth Zlotnick, Rabbi Dana Benson, our incredible musicians, Taryn Weber, Merle Sanders, and Sean Weaver, our tech team, our facilities, our Shamashim. Thank you all for being here. Whether Temple Beth Am has been your home for many years, would become part of the community in the past few, or joining us for the first time, whatever brings you this way, we are one community, joined in the emotional and spiritual work of this day. I'm in awe of what it took to join here today, joining virtually and joining physically. The work of our volunteers, staff, tech team, and lay leaders. The love and commitment and fortitude of this community in this past year and a half has kept me going. And I know it has for many others. We've learned that distance does not diminish community. Barriers are meant to be overcome. And our mission to deepen connections to Judaism and each other is fruitful. So today, on the highest of all days, I'm humbled by how far we have come. We're so grateful that this building is full of life, gathering safely, masked, distanced, and vaccinated. And we encourage you to greet each other, primarily with air hugs or elbow bumps. For those who have been in this building for the first time in 18 months, we're seeing it through our brand new technology upgrades. we express our immense gratitude to our facilities crew, who have painted every single wall, fixed so many mechanics, and kept our little ones safe at sea. Looks wonderful to be here. There's so much more to come. It is odd to think of today as a day of comfort, as themes of repentance and forgiveness weigh heavily on our hearts. But I'm relieved to know that we are together, virtually and physically, and we engage in this spiritual work as one. We're committed to this prayerful journey that we embark upon. Please take care of yourselves today, especially if you are choosing to fast. For those in person, our shamashim are prepared to help if you need to step out or need supports. Please remember that health and well-being always come first. And if you are joining from home or using a device in this sanctuary, you can access a virtual flipbook of our Machzor, our holiday prayer book, through our new mission-driven websites. We've designed these high holidays with both a virtual and in-person community in mind, so we can all engage. So we begin this morning service with wisdom. Wisdom from members of our community as they reflect backwards on what they learned in 5781.
What I've learned over the last year is the importance of face-to-face communications with people. Electronics are just fine, but not being able to sit there and look somebody in the eye, you just lose something.
And I've learned just how important it is that we all care for one another every day, everyone.
I learned that fluffy doggies are the best and they should be brought into the new year.
Hello from the Cully Riveras.
What we learned this year that we're going to be taking into next year is the importance of connecting with family.
Every week we've been doing weekly Zoom calls to be able to chat with our family, and once it was safe to do so and we were all vaccinated, we got to visit with them in person.
Including the opportunity to celebrate a very special day, Liliana's bat mitzvah. The lesson we learned, family is so important.
This past year and a half, I learned that I love playing music for myself. I would like to share my music with my family and my community.
This past year, I spent more time than usual in my backyard, and it is teeming with life. Bunny patrols, spider pop-up cafes, squirrel highways, hummingbird hangouts, bush tit discussion groups, even a birdhouse turned Airbnb for some actual bees, and unbelievably a coyote birthing center nestled in some nearby bushes. Observing more closely the sights and sounds in my backyard has helped me understand the beauty of slowing down and tuning into the wonders in my surroundings, and this is something I hope to carry forward with me.
I've always struggled with doing too much and setting healthy boundaries, so during 5781 I learned how to do less and feel more like myself, so I'll definitely take that forward.
And I learned how important our neighbors and neighborhood are, and how important it is to build that neighborhood community, and I'll be taking that forward.
And you want to see what Mo learned?
Mo learned creative ways to entertain himself at home.
We continue with prayers of gratitude. On page 156, Asher Yatzar, a prayer of gratitude for our physical bodies. We welcome Joshua and Angie Burgeon to lead us. 156.
Blessed are you, Holy One, who has formed the human body with wisdom, an intricate network of channels, vessels, and openings. This wondrous structure and the flow of life within us allows us to stand before you and give thanks. Let us cherish this gift of flesh and blood, honor it as God's creation. Baruch atah Adonai, rofei chol basar, umafli la'asot. We praise you, Holy One, for wondrous acts of creation and healing.
Oh, Amen. Thank you so much. Oh. We continue on page 158 with the words of Elohai Neshama. Elohai Neshama Shenata Tabi Tehorahi Ata Berata Ata Yitzarta Ata Nefachta Bi Ve'ata Meshamera Bekirbi Ve'ata Ati Litla Mimeni Ulachazira Bi Le'ati Lavo Kol Zman She'ad Neshama Bekirbi Moda Ani Lefanecha Adonai Elohai Ve'Elohei Imotai Moda ani lefanecha, Adonai Elohai v'Elohei motai, Ribon kol hamaasim, Adon kol haneshamot, Baruch ata Adonai, Asher beyado, Nefesh kol chai, Veruach kol besarish.
We continue on page 160 with Nasim B'chol Yom, our daily miracles. Especially on Yom Kippur, we take this time to look more deeply at our lives and our world, noticing and appreciating the great miracles around us. With each line, we can express our gratitude for the small miracles that keep us alive each day. We'll begin each line in Hebrew, and then you can complete it in whatever language you choose. And then at the end, in Beth Am tradition, we'll begin in the Hebrew once more and invite you to conclude in your own way with a miracle unique to you. We welcome Barbara Joker to lead us in the Nasim B'chol Yom, page 160.
Please chant with me in Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lasech vina lehavchin ben yom uven laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, broka haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa li kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten le'ayav koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavir shena me'enai utnuma me'af apai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani b'tzelem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani b'chorim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Yisrael b'gvura. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Yisrael b'tifara. And our last one, take a breath. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam. You have brought us together in this new year.
Welcome, Ed. We continue with the beginning of our morning service on page 178. We welcome Gary Olson and Jacob Efron to open the ark as we join in Baruch Hu together. If it is your tradition or you are able, please rise. If you're standing, please be seated. We welcome Gabriella Hanach to lead us on pages 181 and 183.
Like an unbroken current, energy streams from the source, bathing the planet in light, calling forth life, movement, mind unfolding from matter, the power to love. And we offer it back to you, our own creative energy, ever dreaming, building, shaping patterns out of chaos, searching out light in the darkness. Creation never ceases, not for an instant. All life is aglow with your light. All things draw sustenance from the source. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. Please turn to page 183. You love us by helping us grow. You give us Torah, a ladder for the soul. Words that draw us upward. Every mitzvah an invitation to climb. Forge and kiln and crucible to purify our hearts. You give us Torah. You love us by helping us grow.
Page 186, the words of Shema. On this Shabbat of Shabbats, Shabbat Shabbaton, most revere the festival days, how much more do we need these words? They declare the oneness of God, recited through the oneness of the Jewish people. They bind us to God and more importantly, bind us to each other in Jewish communities all around the world. It's deeply personal and also deeply uniting. Let these few simple and special words resonate and reverberate through your hearts. If it is your tradition to sit for Shema, you're welcome to. If it is your tradition to rise for Shema, you're welcome to. Whatever our position, our voices join together. page 186, Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Vahed.
If you are standing, please be seated. We welcome Cheryl Marks to lead us in V'ahavta, which begins on page 188.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברתם בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem, emet. Yasher koach. We continue with words of Micha Mocha, words of freedom, words of redemption, words of hope. As we go forward into this new year, we hope it is one in which we will continue to have that feeling that our ancestors had as they crossed through the sea. Join with us for Micha Mocha on page 196.
Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai? Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la
We continue with the next section of our morning service, the Tefillah, beginning on page 198. Rabbi Dana will be leading us using a high holiday nusach, the special musical mode that rings in our ears and touches our heart during the season. We'll continue over the next few pages together. If it is your tradition and are able, please rise.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up our lips that our mouths may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor, v'Hanora El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Koneh HaKol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, u'mevii geula livnei bneihem, lema'an shmo be'ahava, page 202. Zochreinu lechaim, melech chafetz b'chaim, v'chotveinu b'sefer ha'chaim, lemancha Elohim chaim. Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh kol atah. Rav le'Hoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalkel chaim bechesed, Mechayeh metim, Verachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, Umkaim emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umi domelach, Melech memit umchayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, Michamocha el harachamim, Zocher Yetzurav, Lechaim, Lechaim berachamim, Lechaim berachamim. V'ne'eman atah lechayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol.
Please be seated. Our tefillah is paused as we enter the daunting and challenging prayers of Unatana Tokef. With these next few pages, we are faced with the fragile reality of life and the balance that holds our fates. The words are heavy and challenge us. But in the end, despite the booming words of a great shofar or the mentions of death, Unatana Tokef ends with a charge to us all. You have the power within us through repentance, prayer, and righteous acts to sway this world and our lives. We must engage. We begin on page 208. Let us proclaim the power of this day, a day whose holiness awakens deepest awe and inspires highest praise for your dominion. For your throne is a throne of love, your reign is a reign of truth. In truth, you are judge and plaintiff, counselor and witness. You inscribe and seal, you record and recount. You remember all that we have forgotten. When you open the book of memories, it speaks for itself. For every human hand leaves its mark, an imprint like no other.
shofar gadol yitaka, v'kol demamot daka yishama, u'malachim yechapezun, v'hil v'rada yochezun, v'yomru Hine yom hadin, lifkod al tzavam arom badin, ki lo yizku me'enecha badin.
A great shofar will cry tekiah. Still small voice will be heard. Angels in the world of fear and trembling will say, behold the day of judgment, for they too are judged. In your eyes they are not blameless. All who come into the world pass before you like sheep before their shepherd. As a shepherd considers their flock when it passes beneath the staff, you count and consider every life. You set bounds. You decide destiny. You inscribe judgments.
Berosh Hashanah yechatemun, yikatemun, uyom tzom Kippur yechatemun,
On Rosh Hashanah, this is written. On the fast of Yom Kippur, this is sealed. How many will pass away from this world? How many will be born into it? Who will live and who will die? Who will reach the ripeness of age? Who will be taken before their time? Who by fire and who by water? Who by war? Who by beast? Who by famine? Who by drought, who by earthquake, and who by plague, who by strangling, and who by stoning, who will rest, and who will wander, who will be tranquil, and who will be troubled, who will be calm, and who tormented, who will live in prosperity, and who will live in poverty, and who in prosperity, who will be humbled, who exalted.
Uteshuva, utevila, utedaka, utevila,
Please read with me on the top of page 214. But through return to the right path, through prayer and righteous giving, we can transcend the harshness of the decree. You are everything that we praise you for. You are slow to anger, quick to forgive. You do not wish the death of sinners, but urge them to return from their ways and live. Until the day of death, you wait for them. You accept them at once if they return. Since you created us, you know our impulses. We are but flesh and blood. The holiness of the section of the service continues as we segue from Unatana Tokef to the Kiddushah, the prayer of God's holiness on page 218. If this is your tradition and you are able, please rise. Welcome Brenna Luzin to lead us on page 235.
A teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. Your fellow human being is a mirror for you. if there is love and compassion in your soul, you will see the goodness in others. If you see a blemish in another, it is your own imperfection you encounter. Take careful note of the flaws you perceive in others. This is a lesson for you. They are your own flaws set before you, a reminder of your own spiritual work. It is forbidden for a person to be cruel and refuse to be appeased. Rather, one should be easily pacified and difficult to anger. When someone who has wronged you asks for forgiveness, you should forgive that person with a whole heart and a willing spirit, even if the person aggravated and sinned against you greatly. Let the offender come 3 times and ask sincerely for forgiveness. If the offended person continues to be stubborn and refuses to forgive, one is not required to beg forgiveness any longer. The one who refuses to forgive is now the sinner.
Please be seated. We'll have a moment of silence later in our service, but we leave our tefillah section of our service on page 238, asking God to receive our prayers lovingly with Ritzeh.
Ritzeh Adonai Eloheinu ve'amcha Yisrael u'tefilatam be'ahava tekabel beratzon u'tehi leratzon tamid hamodat Yisrael Amecha El karov lechol korav penei el avdecha uchneinu Shefoch ruchacha aleinu v'techezena enenu v'shuvcha letzion v'rachamim Baruch atah Adonai hamachazir b'shechinato letzion, 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 letzion.
I begin with a story. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, we lived in a garden, a home where our every need was met. There was lush greenery all around us, with plants of all kinds to satisfy us. At the center was a magnificent tree whose leaves offered cool shade, whose flowers released a sweet perfume, and whose beauty was captivating. We were allowed to partake in every pleasure from this tree, except its fruit. Still, we picked the fruit, and we tasted its sublime flesh. And with that bite, our senses awakened, and we felt our own power pulse through us, and we understood our heights and our depths, and to our astonishment, our limits. Also, with that bite, we were driven out into a harsh desert which required our labor to tame. We were lost, trekking through that arid terrain. We ached to return to the verdant garden we had left behind. Here in this desert wilderness, there was so much to fear. There were so many unknown threats. Weary from our journey, we yearned for home and couldn't even begin to imagine what might lie ahead. The desert is spacious, though, silent and open. In the emptiness of the earth and sky, there is a stillness all around. And the landscape is so vast that a voice can echo across its canyons, calling, calling. Abraham heard the voice, Sarah too. Generations later, Moses and Miriam and our ancestors did too. And today, now, on Yom Kippur, if we listen carefully, we hear it too. Atem nitzavim hayom. We stand here today, all of us, to hear a voice calling us to teshuvah, arising to our highest selves, calling us to tefillah, speaking the language of hope, calling us to tzedakah, establishing justice in our world. I've told this story before on the High Holy Days, but this year my version is different. This year, maybe you've heard, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. This year, everything is different. In ordinary times, I believe that most of us leave Yom Kippur services with the best intentions to repair what is broken. Yet, in the weeks that follow, we get swept away in the bustle of every day, and we drift from the promises that we make on Yom Kippur. The power of this day floats from our consciousness as we search for our keys or juggle the grocery bags or draft another email. We return to old habits of heart and mind. Some of us are selfish, others self-loathing. Some fear taking risks, and others are too impulsive for our own good. Some of us numb ourselves with intoxicants of all kinds. Some are filled with apathy or rage or envy or the compulsion to criticize others. Meanwhile, the earth continues its orbit around the sun, and months pass, and Yom Kippur arrives once again to remind us of who we are and what we value most. This year is different, though, because this year we've spent the last 18 months in a heightened Yom Kippur consciousness. Throughout the pandemic, we have been laser focused on serious questions of life and death, with little else to distract us. As we reorganize our lives in the wake of COVID-19, we continually assess our choices. Do they promote health? Are they life-affirming, meaningful, enduring? These questions we've asked in response to COVID are also the very same questions we ask on Yom Kippur, and the answer is always the same. In the words of the poet Rainer Maria Rilke, for here there is no place that does not see you. You must change your life. We must change our lives. Hayom, today, now. We are all those first humans coming out of the garden. We are all shaped by our origins, wherever we were raised, whether we were coddled or neglected, and whenever we were raised, whatever generation we were born into. Each of us emerges out of the garden of our youth, the place that forms us, imprinting its values on us. Inevitably, there will be moments afterward when we are lost, alone, looking backward, nostalgic for anything familiar, in search of shelter and companionship. Most of us have felt this at some point in our adult lives, the sense of exile. There is no escaping it. It's just part of the human condition. And yet, what I realize from this side of the pandemic, what I want to share with you on this Yom Kippur, unlike any other, is that the garden was never intended to be our only home, just our first home. Even when we were cast out into the desert, even then, the wilderness was a starting point, a place to begin. Atem nitzavim hayom, we stand here today on Yom Kippur to remind ourselves that however lonely we are, however guilty we are, however filled with shame or doubt or anger we are not alone in a barren wasteland. The universe, despite what may have transpired in this last year or 18 months, is not silent nor arbitrary. We are not condemned to a life of ceaseless wandering. Today, we affirm that even in our most desperate moments, especially in our most desperate moments, Judaism teaches that we need not despair. If we slow down enough, get quiet enough, we can hear the voice that our ancestors heard echoing across time and space. We can hear that call to go forth to a place of promise, strengthened by the presence of others who join us on this quest. We will create a new home there, a home built on sacred obligations to each other and covenantal love. And the voice declares, this home we will create is not far off, not in heaven or across the sea. It's right here, inside us, in our hearts and in our mouths. It's right here between us, in the space where you and I meet, where we celebrate being bound together by a source greater than ourselves. This Yom Kippur is different. The year ahead can be that place of promise. We can build a new home for ourselves, our community, and our world. And the pandemic has shown us that we must change our lives. Hayom, today, now. In ordinary times, it's easy to ignore that call for change, abandoning our Yom Kippur consciousness as the year unfolds. The 20th century Hasidic master, Rabbi Shalom Noah Berezovsky, who moved from Belarus to Tel Aviv on the eve of another global cataclysm, on the eve of World War II, understands why. Berezovsky understands that the work of teshuvah, of transformation, of change, is painstakingly hard. He teaches that it's easier to just tinker here or there rather than make wholesale changes in our lives. The task of a person, Berezovsky writes, is like that of a person who is building an elaborate house on a foundation of rubble. If we only make minor repairs, the house remains perpetually in danger of collapse. None of these minor repairs will solve the problem until we have the courage to destroy the whole structure of the house, then we can dig deep and strong foundations on top of those new foundations. That's when a person can build and establish a strong house. While Berezovsky's image of a collapsed house is shocking, it's also accurate. The urgency of the pandemic has ripped out everything from under us, shaking the foundation on which we stand and weakening the societal structures around us. Every individual, every industry, every institution, including, by the way, the synagogue, has been impacted by the pandemic. Over the last 18 months, the whole human family has lived with a Yom Kippur consciousness. We have awakened to our own mortality and to the necessity of community connections and to the sin of systemic inequities in society. Berezovsky's teaching has come to pass. There is no time to waste with tinkering about with minor repairs. The home we once inhabited has crumbled. We cannot go backward. We can only go forward. We must change our lives. Atem nitzavim hayom. We stand here today, all of us, to hear that voice that echoes across time and space, calling to us, beckoning us home. Only this will not be a homecoming, a return, because this home has never existed before. It will be the creation of home. That is the message of this Yom Kippur, unlike any other. We can change our lives. And when we do, promise awaits us. Our High Holy Day book, prayer book, has identified 3 steps to changing our lives. We just heard it in the Unatana Tokef prayer. The foundation stones for our new home are teshuvah, tefillah, tzedakah, often translated as repentance, prayer, and charity, perhaps more accurately described as arising to our highest selves, speaking the language of hope, and establishing justice among all people. These will provide a sturdy base upon which we can build anew. Let us respond to the call of this day by learning to be at home within ourselves, caring for our bodies and our souls, taking real pleasure in this world, repairing broken relationships. Now is the time to change our habits. Reach out to loved ones from whom we are estranged. Focus on what we truly value. Today we hear the call for teshuvah, for arising to our highest selves. And let us respond to the call that reminds us that we're not alone. Now is the time to build meaningful connections with each other. Together, let us have the audacity to believe that we can create a Jewish home here at Temple Beth Am that has never existed before, one where we can meet the existential and moral challenges of the decades ahead. And even in our diversity, it will be a place where everyone can find shelter, a home where we come to nurture our souls, strengthen our hearts, and feed our minds. Today, we hear the call for tefillah, speaking the language of hope. And in our congregation and beyond, let us respond to the call that urges us to clear away the remnants of old societal structures that have upheld systems of injustice, both here within our community and beyond the walls of Temple Beth Am. It is time to rectify inequities, creating a safer, more righteous home in our city and our nation for all our citizens. especially those who have been traditionally relegated to the margins. Building this home will require honesty and sacrifice. It's not incumbent upon us to complete this work, but neither are we free to desist from it. We engage in this work as an act of teshuvah and as a promissory note to future generations. Today, we hear the call for tzedakah, establishing justice among all people. On this Yom Kippur, unlike any other, there is no time to waste. The pandemic has shown us that we can no longer just tinker around the edges. No matter how lost we feel, we must journey together to a future filled with promise. Atem netzavim hayom, we stand here today, all of us, ready to lay down the foundation stones for building of a new home within ourselves, with each other, and in our world. We cannot go backward. We can only go forward. As the poet says, for here there is no place that does not see you. You must change your life. We turn now to the time in which we are ready for the Seder Kriyat HaTorah, our service for reading Torah. We begin this with the recitation of Avinu Malkeinu, and we'll do that a little differently this year, as we're doing a little differently this year, because in addition to us, both at home and here, saying the words of Avinu Malkeinu, will also be enhanced by our choir who will sing it on the video. So ordinarily during these services, you're either watching a video or we're doing something here. But for Avinu Malkeinu, we're going to keep the ark open, and we're going to allow the congregational choir to join us. And maybe you're not aware, but Avinu Malkeinu, the notion of saying this prayer at a time when we are looking for some kind of major change in our lives, goes back thousands of years. It's taught in the Talmud that it came to pass at a time of drought that Rabbi Eliezer went before the congregation and said 24 prayers, but not one of those prayers was answered. And then Rabbi Akiva, in his humility, without saying lots and lots of words, all he said was, Avinu Malkeinu, hear our prayer, have mercy on us. And his prayer was answered. We continue with Avinu Malkeinu. It's on page 252. I'm grateful to Seth Gars, who will open the ark. I invite you to please rise or rise in spirit. Oh, there's a string. We can just stick that back. And please, maybe we'll do this responsively. I'll read the first line, and then I'll invite you to read responsively with the second, and so on. Page 252. Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, hear our voice. Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and our families.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror.
Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived.
Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us a year of goodness.
Avinu Malkeinu, in our hands for a year.
Avinu Malkeinu, let our eyes behold the dawn of redemption.
Avinu Malkeinu, we pray, do not turn away from you with nothing.
Avinu Malkeinu, welcome our prayer with love, accept and embrace it.
Avinu Malkeinu, act toward us as befits your name.
Avinu Malkeinu, act for your sake, if not for ours.
Avinu Malkeinu, you alone are sovereign.
Avinu Malkeinu, let the gates of heaven be open to our prayer.
Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voice, treat us with tender compassion.
And let's say together in Hebrew and in English, Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu Va'anenu, Ki ein banu ma'asim, Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Avinu
continue on page 254. Let the reading of Torah be like prayer, flowing like waters that renew the spirit, refreshing and sweet to nourish the soul. Let the reading of Torah be like prayer, every word a blessing, every verse a conversation with God.
Ein kmo pava Elohim Adonai,
Ein kema'asecha,
Malchutecha malchut kol olamim, Umemshaltecha lechol dor vador. Adonai melech, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Adonai oz le'amoyin. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom.
And we now announce the words of the Shema.
Shema Yisrael
Adonai Eloheinu,
Adonai Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo Gadlul Adonai Yitune Romemav Shemo Yachdav Lecha Adonai Hagedula veHagevura veHatiferet veHanetzach veHahod Ki chol v'shamayim u'va'aretz Ki chol v'shamayim u'va'aretz.
Well, I'm going to invite you all up in just a moment, but you know what? Why don't you all come up now, and then I'll just explain, and if you can have a seat on... Can we actually have the Torah readers maybe stand on the ramp so that we are COVID safe? And we'll have everyone else for the Aliyah have a seat. So Rena, you can have a seat. Sorry, this is kind of a funky year, but I wanted to just share a little bit before I introduce this amazing group of people who will be bringing Torah to our community. I wanted to share a little bit because you might think, based on my sermon that I just preached, that we would be reading from the book of Deuteronomy, from the Torah portion Nitzavim, that begins with the 10 Nitzavim Hayom. You stand here today, all of you. And that is because traditionally in progressive Jewish communities, those are the words that we read on this day. And I believe those are the words that are the spirit of this day, that we stand here together, sit here together, are here together to choose life, to choose love, and to choose connections with each other and God. But as we did on Rosh Hashanah, on Yom Kippur, on this morning, we're going to welcome ourselves forward and we're going to try something new. We're going to read a different sacred text this morning. We're going to read about those first humans who were comforted in the garden and then sent out into the wilderness. And we're going to hear how we can make choices in our lives that will allow us to change who we are, because they did not. We can learn from their mistakes. We are asked in moments of conflict with people to really see them, to see the other. That's what Yom Kippur is about. To recognize, however sure we may be of our rightness, However sure we may be that the other person is wrong, actually there's a common humanity that we share with one another. And there's a question we should be asking that God asks of the first two brothers in the Bible. Cain and Abel have a conflict. And God asks, where is your brother? That's what's being asked of us whenever we're in conflict. Where is the other? Cain responds with the wrong answer. Cain says, am I my brother's keeper? We know that the answer is yes, a resounding yes. So let us learn on this Yom Kippur to see the face of our sibling, our spouse, our parent, our coworker, our friend, even in the height of conflict. Let us know we are their keeper. Let us make the choice, as our traditional Torah portion asks us to, of life, love, and connection. So now, it is an honor to invite forward our members of our community who will be offering the blessing, the aliyah. And now I'll also invite our Torah readers to come forward. So if the three of you will stand here, I will introduce you. So God's simple question to Cain and Abel, you guys can come on forward and stand back. I'll introduce you in just a moment. God's simple question might be what we would call today a teachable moment. Even in the barren wilderness, even there, how did God respond to Cain? God did a very Socratic thing. God asked a question. We are inviting Rena Levine, Mike Walter, and Rachel Scher, who are all educators in our community, of our littlest ones, our school-aged ones, and our college ones. And we have invited them here because on this Yom Kippur, like no other, we pay homage to our educators among us, and who, despite the challenges of lockdown, of hybrid learning, of homeschooling, and so many other obstacles, were there for our students. And what we would like to invite is if any of you at home or here in the sanctuary are also an educator, and parents, if you homeschooled in the last year, you're counted as an educator. We would like for you to join because we are so grateful to all of you for the ways in which you shape our students' lives. And speaking of some of our students, we are so grateful to Zachary Puckett, Talia Puckett, and Jordan Scher, who will be chanting this interesting story of sibling rivalry, one might say, in Hebrew. And then we're very grateful to Emerson Goss, Sandy Berger, and Mark Widow for translating that into English. So once again, if you are an educator, Zach, I think you're first, so let's just make sure we have the Torah where you need it to be. And I'll give you this, so you can come on forward. It's at the beginning, you know. And if you'd like to follow along, actually, it's in our Machzor, our High Holiday Prayer Book. It's on page 269. Zach will begin in Genesis chapter 4, verse 1. He'll go through verse 5, then Talia will pick up at verse 6, and then Jordan will pick up in verse 9. Usually we do this as 3 separate aliyot, but again, for COVID safety, rather than having lots of traffic on the bima, we're doing this as one aliyah. And I will give this to you, my friends.
Ya'amdu Michael ben David ben Ruth Hannah ve'Rivka Miriam bat Yor ve'Rachel ve'Ahava bat Simcha ve'Sara le'aliyah rishona. Baruch Adonai Hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bacha banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Amen.
Amen. V'ha'adam yada et chava ishto, v'tahar v'teled et Cain, v'tomer kaniti ish et Adonai, v'tosef laledet et achiv et Havel, v'yehi Hevel roet son, v'Cain haya oved adama, v'yihi miketz yamim, v'yave Cain mipri ha'adama mincha ladonai, v'Hevel hevi gam hu mibkorot tzono umchelvehen, v'yisa Adonai el Hevel ve'el minchato, ve'el Cain ve'el minchato lo sha'a, v'yichar le'Cain meod, v'yiplu panav.
Wonderful. And so you can step aside and
Vayomer Adonai el Cain, lama chavra lach v'lama naflu panecha, halo im tetiv soet ve'im lo tetiv, lafetach chatat rovetz ve'elecha tishu kato ve'ata timshal bo. Vayomer Cain el Havel achin, vayehi b'hiotam basadeh, vayakam Cain el Havel achin, vayachargehu.
Vayomer Adonai el Cain, Hevel achicha, Vayomer lo yadat, lo yadati, Hashomer achi anochi, Vayomer me ashita, Kol me achicha, soakim ela min ha'adama, ve'ata arur ata, min ha'adama, et piha, לקחת את דמי אחיך מידיך, כי תעבוד את האדמה, לא תוסף כוחה לך, נע ונד תהיה בארץ.
Yasher Koach. And we'll do the blessing after.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tachenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. And to you, the teachers among us who help shape the souls, the minds, and the hearts of the next generation. Mishaberach avotenu v'imotenu, may the God of our ancestors, the gods of our matriarchs, our patriarchs, and all of the teachers who precede us, who handed down wisdom generation to generation, bless you in the work that you do. Bless you in the way in which you transfer wisdom and knowledge to others. Bless you in the way that you are helping to shape our future. May God bless the work of your hands. May God strengthen you so that you may go from joy to joy. May this be a year of health and fulfillment for you. And let us say, Amen. And so thank you all. Our Hebrew readers and our blessers may sit down. We'll do this a little differently than we do in non-COVID years. And now it is an honor to invite forward. Is this okay? Yeah, thank you. There we go. Good. Thank you. And so, as I mentioned, we're blessed to have, we are blessed to have Emerson, Sandy, and Mark, and they will come and read in that order. You know what? Let me just switch this up.
Here.
Now the human being knew Chava, his wife, and she became pregnant. And she gave birth to Cain and said, "With Adonai I have made a human being." And she went on to give birth to his brother Abel. And Abel shepherded flocks, while Cain tilled the soil. After some time, Cain brought to Adonai an offering from his harvest. And Abel too brought the choicest and fattest of his flock. Adonai looked favorably on Abel and his offering, but not on Cain and his offering. So Cain was furious and crestfallen.
And Adonai said to Cain, "Why are you furious, and why so downcast? Would it not be better to rise above this? And if you do not do better, sin crouches like a beast at the door. You are what it craves, and yet you can overcome it." And Cain said to Abel his brother, "Let us go out to the field." And when they were in the field, Cain attacked Abel his brother and killed him.
And Adonai said to Cain, "Where is Abel your brother?" And he said, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" And Adonai said, "What have you done? Your brother's blood cries out to me from the earth. And now you are cursed by the very earth that opened its mouth to take your brother's blood from your hand. When you till the soil, it will no longer bring forth crops. Homeless, you will wander this earth."
And on that ominous note, thank you to our English readers. We really appreciate your sharing those words with us. And there are a few communal prayers that we say when the Torah is open before us. And the first is actually going to be a little different than we've ever done before, but these have been difficult years to be a member of the Jewish people. We have had so much that we have had to endure, so much that we represent to others, that we thought it might be helpful in this Torah moment to make an assertion of what we stand for. And it is an honor to invite Ken Shiovitz forward, who for many, many years, Ken has helped us with our High Holy Days. And I think Brian Ruppberg, our current helper with High Holy Days, I think Ken's glad you got the pandemic years. I'm just saying. Do you have the paper? Okay, wonderful.
Rabbi David Lyon has written, "You probably don't know the name Edmund Flegg, 1874 to 1963. He was a Jewish French writer, thinker, and playwright of the 20th century. During World War I, he joined the French Foreign Legion to fight for his adopted country. He was later honored for his military service. From 1904 to 1920, he was a successful playwright. His work was influenced by the Dreyfus Affair, in particular, and by world events that captured the attention of the Jewish world in transition, and by the tragic deaths of both his sons, who were killed fighting for France in World War II. Though Flegg identified himself in multiple ways biographically, it was his Jewish identity that emerged above all others. The circumstances and vicissitudes of his life invested him in a search for who he was at his core. At last, he found his Jewish identity again. In it, he embraced his humanity. Above it, he discovered the divine unity, God, and ultimately that the people Israel, the only people to which he truly belonged by birth and by covenant, places unity, which is divine, above all. His was not only a pledge, it was a plea. I believe that Flegg ached to be heard by God and to be heard by humanity. Though he believed that God surely heard him, he hoped that humanity would hear him too. And if humanity would know that the unity of humanity is divine, then the devastation of war and the persecution of Jews and Israel would end. Edmund Flegg, I am a Jew. I am a Jew because my faith demands of me no abdication of mind. I am a Jew because my faith requires of me all the devotion of my heart. I am a Jew because in every place where suffering weeps, I weep. I am a Jew because at every time when despair cries out, I hope. I am a Jew because the word of the people Israel is the oldest and the newest. I am a Jew because the promise of Israel is the universal promise. I am a Jew because for Israel the world is not completed. We are completing it. I am a Jew because for Israel humanity is not created. We are creating it. I am a Jew because Israel places humanity and its unity above the nations and above Israel itself. I am a Jew because above humanity, image of the divine unity, Israel places the unity which is divine.
Thank you so much, Ken. And also with the Torah before us, we take a moment for healing. Yeah?
Yeah, we recognize all the different kinds of ailments that our world is seeing, both physical as well as spiritual. The physical, of course, in our own bodies, the spiritual of the issues of justice in our world. And so we offer these words, this prayer for healing of both body and spirit at these times. The words of El Na Rafana Allah, the words that Moses offered to Miriam when he was asking for her to be healed, the first words of a prayer for healing in our tradition. El Na Rafana Allah, El Na Rafana Allah, El Na Rafana Allah, El Na Rafana Allah.
For anyone you may have held in your hearts, perhaps you wrote some names in chat, we wish them a refuah shlema, a full and speedy recovery of body and of soul. Amen.
Amen.
It is an honor to invite Terry Bicey and Michael Berman to come forward to open the Ark. The time has come to lift and dress Torah, and I vote for Rabbi Jason to be the one to lift and me to be the one to dress. And I'll invite you, if you are able, to please rise.
Vezot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai veyad Moshe.
Here it is. And now we'll return the Torah to the Ark.
Lama chazikim ba, v'torah
Please be seated. We just talked in our Torah portion about this idea of really seeing the face of the other, really seeing that we are required to be there to embrace them and to take care of them. And this is sometimes challenging. It's sometimes challenging in the world at large. It's sometimes challenging in our lives with the people we interact with. And in all honesty, it's also sometimes challenging right here at Temple Beth Am. But we are here because we believe that we can create a Jewish home where each of us is nourished and flourishes. And so, addressing this question, I am so grateful to share with you a video that we'll show again in just a little bit. You may have wondered, where is Isaiah with that amazing Haftarah portion? Is this the fast I asked for? Is this the fast I wanted? Well, Isaiah, and actually Jonah too, who's another dude that we read about on Yom Kippur, we're going to invite them to join us with our creative service, which will be shown live streamed right after this service. But first, I'd like to invite you to watch this wonderful video with Ndibuisi and Janice Blower-Chima.
The best way to understand your culture is to experience a different culture. Life is constantly challenging, and more so when you confront social and racial bias, both from people who know you and from people who don't know you. Ndibuisi and I met as students at the University of Washington. We married despite objections from my family and the greater community. We have 4 sons and 3 grandsons. I was raised in the Portland, Oregon Jewish community. We became members here at Beth Am to connect with other Jews in Seattle and to help provide a strong foundation for our children.
I was born and raised in Igbo tribe of Nigeria. My family is Catholic, which I no longer practice.
We agreed that we wanted our kids to grow up with a religion, so by consensus they would be Jews. Jews and Igbos have certain traditions in common. We circumcise our boys at 8 days. We have performed animal sacrifice, placing a high value on education and respect for elders.
My experience at Temple Beth Am is no different than what anyone would have in a community. Some people are open-minded, some are neutral, and some are closed-minded. At Temple, things I have observed are friendliness, indifference, and subtle rejection by way of quick glances, avoiding eye contact, and welcoming smiles.
It has been a paradox for me because Judaism teaches us chesed, loving kindness. But in my experience, there have been times when some have missed the mark. Being a mixed-race family at TBA has enriched our lives and fulfilled my dreams for my children and likewise for me and Ndibuisi, building connections to our Jewish community.
My worldview expanded because I only knew what my religion taught me about Jews. From participating in Jewish life cycle events,
like our son's B'nai Mitzvot,
and celebrating Shabbat, and so on, I now understand more about what it means to be Jewish.
We're happy that things are changing for good, even though there's a long way to go.
And so we take this moment to recognize there are places where we as individuals, where we as family members, as we as community members, as we as citizens of the world have missed the mark. This is our time on Yom Kippur to name the ways in which we've missed it. If you name something, it takes its power away, and then we know what we need to work on to make change. So we continue now with our Vidui, our confessional prayers. It begins on page 296. I invite you, if you are able, to rise as I offer these words. Our God and God of all generations, may our prayers reach your presence, and when we turn to you, do not be indifferent. Adonai, we are arrogant and stubborn, claiming to be blameless and free of sin. In truth, we have stumbled and strayed. We have done wrong. Continue now with our longer confessional prayer, or longer Vidui Rabbah. It's on page 300. I invite you to join me in the recitation of our sins, and we'll begin with that Hebrew phrase which means for the sin or for missing the mark that we have all done, and it goes, Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. So please join me. We'll say that phrase in Hebrew and then the English together. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, the ways we have wronged you under duress and by choice, and harm we have caused in your world consciously and unconsciously. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, the ways we have wronged you through our thoughtlessness and harm we have caused in your world through impulsive acts of malice. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. We have wronged you by abusing our power, and harm we have caused in your world through disrespect to parents and teachers. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. The ways we have wronged you by giving in to our hostile impulses, and harm we have caused in your world through inflexibility and stubbornness. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. The ways we have wronged you through lies and deceit, and harm we have caused in your world by making light of serious matters. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha. The ways we have wronged you in our routine conversations, and harm we have caused in your world through envy. And we'll say it in both Hebrew and English. V'al kulam Eloha slichot, salach lanu, mechal lanu, kaper lanu. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. We continue on page 304. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, the ways we have wronged you openly and secretly, and harm we have caused in your world by hating without cause. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, the ways we have wronged you by losing self-control, and harm we have caused in your world through consumption of food and drink. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, the ways we have wronged you through sexual immorality, and harm we have caused in your world by hardening our hearts. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, the ways we have wronged you through greed and exploitation, and harm we have caused in your world through dishonesty in business. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, the ways we have wronged you through our innermost thoughts, and harm we have caused in your world through gossip and rumor. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, the ways we have wronged you by offering or accepting bribes, and harm we have caused in your world by profaning your name in public. V'al kulam Eloah slichot, slach lanu, mechal lanu, kaper lanu. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement.
Selach lanu, mechal lanu,
We'll take the next few moments in silence to read through the pages of the silent confessional through page 309, or if you choose to offer your own prayer of confession. Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai Elecha, Venashuva, Venashuva. Chadesh, Chadesh, Yameinu kekedem. In a moment, we'll step forth from this part of our day, but first, our President, Ben Gladstein, would like to offer a few greetings. He is choosing, for COVID reasons, to do so by video.
Welcome everyone, Shana Tova and Gamar Chatima Tova. On behalf of the Board of Directors, we are honored that you've joined us, whether here or virtually. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ben Gladstein. I'm the Board President, and you may recognize my name from the emails that show up every month in your inbox. I have the somewhat dubious distinction of being a Board President who has entered the synagogue less than 5 times during his presidency. While I haven't been in the synagogue much, many of you may recognize me from meeting at the playground with our children, playing paintball with the Brotherhood, or even wrangling my 3 young, and eventually wet and sandy, children at Tashlich last week. My remarks today will be very brief. To TBA's clergy and professional team, thank you for your hard work putting together these beautiful services during uncertain and challenging times. Your dedication and devotion to our community are deeply appreciated. And to our entire community, thank you for your engagement with Temple Beth Am over the last year. Your financial support has allowed us to provide programming and services that have helped deepen relationships in this community. But beyond that, thank you for your engagement itself. Whether you are participating in Elul groups, leading hearth groups, teaching our young Gon students, joining our adult learning community, studying Torah together, or anything else, these acts of engagement are so important and valuable. Your engagement makes our community a fun, spiritual, learned, and vibrant place. Thank you, and please keep it up. As you've seen in my monthly President's Letters, we have an exciting and ambitious year ahead of us as we work to re-engage our whole community. Now is the time for all of us to reconnect. If you've been a bit checked out over the last 18 months, I understand. As I noted at the beginning of my remarks, I haven't been in the synagogue very often in the last 18 months. But there is so much going on, and I'm finding more and more meaningful, fun opportunities to connect with all of you. Personally, this opportunity to connect is just what I've needed. And so my ask for all of you, please participate. Whoever you are, whatever phase of life, however you want to reconnect, we have meaningful and fun ways to engage with the community. If you're not sure where to start, check the Temple website or reach out to Sam Rosen, whose contact information is also on the Temple website. Thank you again for your support and for joining us here today. I hope you have a meaningful Yom Kippur, an easy fast, if that is your tradition, and a safe and healthy 5782. Thank you.
You know what? Thank you so much, Ben, even though hopefully you're hearing at home. Sam Rosen, since you were named, come on over. I just want to introduce you, and so that people at home can see your shining face as much as we can see under the mask. Because I know that Ben does not say this in earnest. This is Sam Rosen, longtime Temple Beth Am member, also known as Mom of Campbell and Sage, I have to say, but our manager, our advancement manager. If you want to know how to get engaged, Sam's your gal. So thank you for doing this, Sam. I just figured maybe you don't know who Sam is, and it's always better to have a face to put to the name. And with that, we don't end officially our morning services because it's intended from Kol Nidre until Ne'ilah, our final prayers of the day, that we are just in one long prayer service together. But I do want to just alert you to a few things that are going on in this sacred season. First of all, you have an opportunity with the rest of the day, even though we ourselves may not be eating. We know that there are those who do not have the choice about that. We continue with our food drive through today, so you can feel free to come back later with bags filled with non-perishable items. We have the distinct honor of being the synagogue that has collected the most food for the last, I think it's like 5 years or something like that. So let's do it again this year and really see our neighbors and help to feed them. We have a lot going on today to help you through this day. We have a live program that's happening on Zoom. It's our discussion program that usually happens over in UPrep. You may have heard this idea about hearth groups. Those are intentional small groups that have been helping people to feel more connected at this time of disconnection. I'll be there on Zoom later, and I hope you will be too, to get a little taste of what the hearth groups are like. Also, later today, we will have our Torah service, our healing service. Those will be live streamed, and then we will be back in the sanctuary for our Yizkor and Ne'ilah service. We thank our brotherhood who will be putting up our Sukkot. I don't know who planned this, but 5 days after Yom Kippur, we're back in the Sukkah. But fortunately, this year we have a reason to celebrate. Our Erev Sukkot, we are celebrating Diana Brement, who has won the Lowen Kaplan Award for longtime service to our community. And we have a new award this year called the Kesher Award, about connecting. And it's awarded to 3 people who have just joined in the last 5 years, who have already made their mark on our community: Joel Fingerroot, Claire Smith, and Lauren Young Dudikoff. So I hope you'll come to celebrate that. Sukkot, I promise I'll be done in just a moment. Sukkot morning, we not only have our festival service, which will be slightly abbreviated because we're gonna want to join with our Tot community, who will be out in the sukkah. That's at 11 o'clock with Rabbi Jason. And then all of us will gather intergenerationally to celebrate the holiday. Exciting plans for Simchat Torah. Stay tuned. Argon registration is open. So much. If you haven't checked it out, we have a new website. We hope you'll enjoy exploring that. Anything else that I missed? I think I got it all. And even if not, just ask Sam Rosen. She'll know. And so while we aren't ending services per se, we do recognize that each of us plays a role in creating a sense of shleimut, a sense of wholeness, even on this day when we look at our brokenness. And so we thought it might help to mark this moment in the day with the singing of Oseh Shalom. The words are on page 250. For here there is no place that does not see you. You must change your life. Som Kal, may it be a meaningful day. Gamar Chatima Tova.